Hey everyone, hope you all doing well today. Welcome back to another video in the Jazz, Rags, and Blues Level 1 book. This is Lesson 6. We're going to cover pages 12 and 13, Surfboard Boogie. So once again, welcome back. It's been a little while since our previous lesson. In fact, I checked, it was actually like a year ago. So if you've been following in this book and you're still following, congrats to you, because I have let this one sort of slip. But I knew eventually I was going to get back to it. So here we are, Lesson 6, pages 12 and 13, Surfboard Boogie. This is a fun piece today. Not too long, it's just the 2 pages. It's a pretty fast piece. If you look at the pace there on page 12, the quarter note is equal to 160 beats per minute. So one of the goals with this piece is to go pretty fast if you can. It says lively with energy. Also notice that the 8th notes are going to be swung. So we'll get into a little bit of that as well. Now with all things, you want to start slow, of course, and we will start slow. But let me go ahead and give you a little preview of this piece. Let me play it for you. I'm going to play it for you at the fast pace, and maybe that'll inspire you and say, you know what, I'm going to stick with this for a little bit, and maybe see it through up to that fast tempo. So here we go. All right, so, there's a couple of spots I was coming up with my own fingering and maybe didn't pay attention to too many details. So don't look too closely. But it's a fun piece. It's almost 2 different pieces. Page 12 focuses on the left hand. And the left hand is just doing like a pretty common sort of like bluesy style there, and the right hand kind of gets to show off on page 13, and then at the very end that left hand idea comes back one last time there at measure 23. So you got 2 separate ideas here going on. The left hand gets to shine, and then the right hand gets to shine. So with that being said, let us look at page 12 first. Let's look at the right hand, because the right hand's pretty simple. The right hand is tied in the first 2 measures, and you've just got E and C. So you're just really holding that for those 2 measures for 8 beats, and you're letting the left hand do its thing. You're going to play that again in measures 3 and 4. And that's also tied. When you get to measure 5 on the second line, all you're doing is the E becomes an E flat. So you got E flat and C for measures 5 and 6, and then when you get to the 3rd line, it's back to E with that E natural. So measures 7 and 8 are tied. You finally jump up to G and D on measures 9 and 10, and then there at the bottom at measure 11, you're back to E. You do have a little bit of rhythm in this measure. You've got a half note, 1, 2, and then 3 and 4 and, with the E flat and C. Notice that it's tied there on, so a little bit of syncopation. So if we count that out, I'm going to count it out without swing. When I played it for you a second ago, I did do the swing. So nice and slow at measure 11, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So notice that's 3 and. On the and is where you hit that a second time, and then you're going to hold it the rest of the measure. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, and then you've got E and C again. And so most of page 12 is E and C, E flat and C, and only measures 9 and 10 are the G and the D. Okay, so that's basically it. Since there's not too much rhythm, let's go ahead and look at the left hand now. The left hand is what's so busy. The left hand starts down here on the low C with your 5th finger. Now notice the E, they have it with your 4th finger. I'm using my 3rd finger. If you have smaller hands like me, I find that a stretch from C to E, 5 to 4, is not easy. These are weak fingers, these are smaller fingers. I find that 5 to 3 is much easier. So you have the option. You can do 5-4, but I'm going to do 5-3, and I do recommend that if you have a hard time with 5-4, try the 5-3. So what you're doing in the first three notes, first three beats, is you're highlighting, or outlining, I should say, a C chord. C, E, G, and then your thumb comes on A, and you're going to cross over to the B flat with your second finger. And notice that B flat is tied, so there's some syncopation. So that's going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So you want to get comfortable with just that first, because you're going to be playing that several times throughout this page. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, it's tied, but it's only tied into the first half of the first beat of the next measure. And then you're going to hit that B flat again on the and then you're coming right back to the same notes you played. On beat 2 of the second measure, you got your thumb on A, 2 on G, and either 4 or 3 on the E. And then you land back on C in the third measure. So you're playing C, E, G, A, B flat, and then B flat again, A, G, E, and then you end up on C. Now with the counting, without swing, it's going to be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So looking at that little bit of syncopation, starting on beat 4 of measure 1 on the A, that's 4 and 1 and 2. So again, that's 4 and 1 and 2. So let's put it together one more time. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. The next two measures are the same thing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now at the end of measure 4, I've got my third finger on E. Notice measure 5, I've got the F, but it's with my fifth finger. Just jump to it. There's not going to be anything smooth about it. Just jump to it. It's not a smooth piece. There's no pedal. So there's no worries about trying to make that smooth. Now, you're actually playing the exact same pattern here. Just starting on F. I'm outlining an F chord. F, A, again with third or fourth finger, and C. And then my thumb's on D. And again, I'm going to cross over my second finger to a flat, and this time it's E flat. And in the next measure, hit the E flat again, and then D, C, A. But I don't end up on F. When I get to measure 7, I jump down to C. So back at measure 5, that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and it's the exact same rhythm, same pattern that you just did at the beginning at measure 1. So you're here on the A at the end of measure 6, and you got to drop down to C. And when you do that, 7 and 8 are the same as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Same as those measures. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and now. You're going to have to jump to 5 on G, even higher. Same pattern. Same pattern. I'm going to take that back. It's a little different. It starts out the same. So you're going to play G, B, but then it's C. So because of that, so it is different. It is different. So G, you are going to have to stretch. Yeah, here you are going to have to stretch 4 to the B. The reason for that is if I did 3 on B, I've got 2 on C, and then I've got my thumb on C sharp, and then I'm kind of stuck with an odd thing here. So do 5 on G. If you can't stretch to 4, hop over. Just hop over. Okay, so G, B, C, and then C sharp, D. But when you go to measure 10, you're not going back to C sharp. You're hitting D and going down to B with your second finger, and then A, and then G. Okay, so that is very different. So back at measure 9, G, 4 on B, 3 on C, 2 on C sharp, thumb on D, which is tied, and then it is the same rhythm though that you've had. At measure 10, you hit the D again, but then 2 to B, 3 to A, and 4 to G. So with the count, that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And when you get to measure 11, you got C, just probably with your thumb, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And that's the same rhythm as the right hand. Notice that. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And so you go down to 5 on F, and then you go back to C for our last measure of the page. So let's go back to the beginning. Let's do all of the left hand with the count. We'll go pretty slow. I'm going to give us a count off. I probably won't count every single measure, but I'll get you started with a count off. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Whoops, I already messed up my fingering. Sorry about that, guys. Once again, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, before we put the hands together, let's talk about the swing. So up to this point, we've just been doing the straight counting. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And when you swing, remember the ands are shifted closer. They come in late and they're shifted closer to the next beat. So it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So anything that is played on an and is shifted. Anything that's played on the big beats is still in the same place. So if I'm taking the first 3 quarter notes at the beginning and I do a straight count versus a swing count, it doesn't affect those. So these first 3 quarter notes with the straight count is 1 and 2 and 3. And if I swing, notice it doesn't change it. 1 and 2 and 3. And the only thing that's changed is the feel of my count, but the quarter notes are still in the big beats. Now, it does change these eighth notes that come after it. So you got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So the eighth notes, the B flat at the end of the first measure comes in a little bit later, just a little bit later. So 4 and 1 rather than 4 and. It's 4 and 1 and 2. That B flat was a little bit later as well. So the 2 B flats at the beginning are going to come in delayed because of the swing. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And now what you're going to want to do is take those 2 measures, just your left hand, and play it again and again and again, going a little bit faster until you get the feel and you don't have to count anymore. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and still swinging it, maybe even faster. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And when you finally start feeling it, it's going to take a while. Then hopefully you can just feel it without even having to count. And eventually faster. And so notice when you go that fast, that B flat to A is pretty quick because it's delayed with the swing. If I didn't do it, if I didn't swing, it wouldn't feel that way. It has a slightly different feel. But when you go that fast, you don't really feel the swing as much. That's the other thing. Now when you get to page 13 and the right hand does all this, it's really gonna show up and be present, that swing. Now, we said measure 3 and 4 is the same. 5 and 6 are the same. Same rhythm, same counting, same deal with the swing. Same thing with 9 and 10. The notes are different, fingering's different, same rhythm. Now when you get to measure 11, that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 3 and 4. Instead of 3 and 4, and it's 3 and 4. So the next F on the end there is delayed slightly. Same thing in the right hand. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, rather than 1 and 2 and 3 and 3 and 4. Got it? Now let's put it together. Let's do the left hand with the swing. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And measure 9 is still giving me a hard time with the fingering. All right, now let's put both hands together. We'll go at the same pace with the swing. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And that's basically it. And if you do this at that pace, that's a pretty good pace. Of course, like I said, it could go a lot faster, but that's pretty good if you get to that pace. Now, let's look at page 13. So the roles kind of reverse. The left hand now has kind of what the right hand did. You're down at C and G. And you're actually going to hold it for 7 counts, because look at measure 14, beat 4. You have a little staccato quarter note there. So you're going... since we're doing swing, and maybe you've practiced page 12 enough that you're starting to feel the swing, let's stick with the swing. Now, like I said, nothing in the left hand less than a quarter note is going to be affected by swing, but you still want that feel, right, regardless. So at 13, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. So notice when you have staccato real short, now that doesn't mean go... Just because it's short, that doesn't mean it goes faster. You still have to hold beat 4, or you still have to wait for beat 1 of the next measure for your next set of notes. You can't suddenly go faster, right? That's the rule of staccato. So if I'm going really slow at measure 14, I know it's tied, but I'm going to start on 14. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... So notice 4 and I still got to observe that count. I can't go 4 and then right into the next measure, right? So it's short, but it's still a quarter note. You still got to wait, okay? Measure 15 into 16, same thing. But when you get at the end of measure 16 on beat 4, use that staccato to hop over to F and C. Now notice it's the same fingering, 1 and 5 as C and G. So kind of keep that locked hand position. And when you get to the end of measure 18, you got the C and hop down to C and G again. At the end of measure 20, hop up to G and D in measure 21. Now that's only 4 counts. 22 goes slightly down both fingers to F and C. And in measure 23, it's like the beginning. C, E, F, though. It's a little different. It's actually a little different. Because of that, this is similar actually to measure 9. Remember measure 9, we said we had to go to the 4th finger no matter what? We're going to have to do the same thing at 23. 5 on C, 4 on E, 3 on F, and then F sharp G. So that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and notice it's tied. Now here you're going to use pedal at the very end. 1 and 2 and on the C, and then hop up. And that's going to take a little bit of practice. That's a little different. Hopping up to a E and A with 4 and 1. So 1. Now with the pedal down, I can leave early. I can't play this early, but I can leave early and already be on my way there. Got it? And then it's just a fermata, so you can just hold on to that at the end. Let's focus on the right hand now. The right hand is outlining, at measure 13, a C major chord in first inversion. So if you know your C chord, and even better if you know first inversion, you're in really good shape for measures 13 through 16. A C major chord is C, E, and G. If I take the C and flip it up an octave here, and now play with my right hand E, G, and C, thumb, 2nd finger, 5th finger, that is called a C major chord first inversion because I inverted it one time. That's your outline. Now, without the swing, it's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. Here's a tricky thing. It's 3 notes repeated 4 times. E, G, C, E, G, C, E, G, C, E, G, C. That C is tied. But the tricky thing is the counting is kind of in between. 3-note pattern, but we're dealing with 4 beats to a measure. So it's kind of like this 3 divisible by 4 thing. But that's what gives it the kind of funky feel. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. If you put emphasis, which a lot of people will do in music, on beats 1, 2, 3, and 4, the emphasis is in different parts of this pattern. It's on E, it's on C, it's on G, and it's back on E. So you see what I'm saying? So you don't want to do this. See what I'm doing? I'm emphasizing the 3-note pattern. That's a totally different feel. What makes this piece so cool at this point is that it is a 3-note pattern, but felt in a sort of 2-note pattern. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. You might be saying, ugh, that's hard to do. Yeah, it's hard to do because it's different, right? It's not what you would expect, but that's kind of what makes it fun and kind of what makes this style work. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. You kind of want to get that emphasis on those big beats. And then you want to swing it. So when you swing it, the first 8th note's long and the second one's short, right? Because the ands are shorter because they're delayed. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and off on 4. And that's where you have your staccato. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. So just like the left hand on page 1, work on these 2 measures over and over and over again because that is your pattern. That is your rhythmic pattern for this page, regardless of the notes. If you can't swing it right away, that's okay. But even if you're doing the straight, emphasize 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. So step 1 before that, recognize that it's 3 notes. Repeat over and over again. Get that under your fingers, but then go into this feel of 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then faster. Maybe not too fast because it's going to get a little tricky when you do convert it to the swing. Right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. And if that's hard, slow it down. Go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. So it's okay. The next two measures, same thing, same notes in 15 and 16. 17 and 18, the only difference is E flat in both those measures. Measure 19, you're back to E natural. So up to measure 20, it's just a combination of E, G, C, and maybe E flat. Now, when you get to 21, it's a little different. It's a G chord. Root position, by the way, G, B, D. But it's very brief. 1 and 2 and 3 and. So you're playing G, B, D 3 times. But it's the same feel. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And then you have a rest, and during that rest, you want to hop up, thumb on A, 5 on E flat, 1 and 2 and 3 and. Notice they're staccato. They're all E flats, because remember it stays flat in our measure, in the same measure. And then C for 3 counts. Now when you get to measure 24, this is chromatic. You've got a rest on beat 1 and then G on and. The fingering for the chromatic scale. If you're not familiar with a chromatic scale, you can really start on any key. I'll start on C. Chromatic scale is white keys are with the thumb, 1, and black keys are with the 3, third finger. Except when you have back-to-back white keys, then it's 1, 2, and then you end up again with 3 on the black key. 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So this is doing the chromatic scale, but what it's doing is it's starting on G and briefly crossing down. But notice it's 3 on the F sharp, back to G, and then G sharp is not with 2. It's doing the rules of the chromatic scale. 3, thumb on A, 3 on A sharp, thumb on B, and it's even got the second finger going to C. So, to get the fingering for this, memorize this. White key is on thumb, black key is on 3, except when you have back-to-back white keys and it's 1, 2. So, thumb, 3, thumb, 3, 1, 3, 1, 2. Once you memorize this, it's easier than reading those notes. Those notes aren't easy to read, but it's easier to see it down here. So memorize this pattern. It's G, F sharp, G, and then it just goes up. No skipping until you get to C. And then you hop down 2 on the D. So 2's on C for 2 counts, and then D, and it's tied. With the rhythm, in rhythm, it'd be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now, it does have a retard, and a lot of times when you swing a piece, they don't say this. Some pieces do, some don't. So it could be optional. When you have a retard and you're slowing down, it sort of can take away the swing, or like you're supposed to take away the swing. So if I have the swing and I'm slowing down, you kind of lose the feel. 1 and 2 and 3 and. So that's not a bad thing, but I've seen many pieces that just go. They suddenly just say, no swing there. So I kind of lean towards the no swing on the retard. To me, it just kind of feels better. It kind of has a nice ending. It's a little different. And like I said, when you add the swing to a retard, it just kind of loses that feel. So it's really optional if you want to do it or not. I'll leave it up to you. I think it's just whatever you think sounds better. Go for it. But you're definitely slowing down there. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I personally like not swinging there. So that's my take on it. Now let's put all of the right hand together. I'm gonna focus on the first 3 lines. And actually, I'm gonna put both hands together. Both hands should be okay now. So because your left hand doesn't do a whole lot, and actually your left hand only has these staccatos when your right hand's resting. So, but we'll go slow with the swings. So make sure you got C and G, and you're outlining the C first inversion in the right hand. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now let's stop right here because this last line's pretty tricky. So we've got your left hand goes down to F and C, your right hand comes up to A and E flat. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and now you got C's in both hands, 5 on C in the left hand, 3 on C in the right hand. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Remember 4 goes to E, 3 to F sharp, F, and then F sharp. G is tied, so it's and 1 and. So you see how that works? So at measure 23, we've got 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then you've got C's again in both hands, but it's 5 and 2. And then take the 2 and move it. And you're moving both hands to E, A, and D. If you're looking at the piano, there is a pattern to the E, A, and D. There's 2 white keys in between them all. So that's kind of cool if you like patterns like that. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot going on there that makes sense. 4 on E, thumb on A, 2 on D. So that bottom line at 22 is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And then you could just stop counting here if you want. Honestly, I went to 2. It should have been... I went to 3. It should have been 2. Although, you know what? Whoops. If you went to 3 there, it's not the end of the world because you're jumping down. If you were to keep going up the chromatic scale, you're stuck, right? Because how do you get to the C sharp? Well, you could use 4, but you see the rule of 3s on the black keys. That would be interrupted if you did that. But my point is, if you went to 3 by accident, you're not going to get in trouble. Now, of course, this will go a lot faster. I'm going to go ahead and put all of page 13 together, maybe a little bit faster. So I'll give you a little count off. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and... All right, so before we finish this lesson, the dynamics are mostly on the loud side. All of page 12 is forte. When you get to page 13, measure 13, it's mezzo forte. So still strong, maybe a little less volume, but then it grows at measure 22 or into measure 22. And then, of course, we have the retard and the softening at the end. So that's basically it. It's just a lively piece with energy, as it says. I'm going to play it for you again. One more time, from beginning to end now, all the way through. But I'm going to play it pretty slow so that when you finally put both pages together, you can sort of have this slower practice tempo to play along with, if you will, just as you're putting this whole piece together. And then I'll play it one more time up to pace. So at the very beginning, I'll give you a slow count off, and then we'll go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And So if you're looking at my fingering at measure 9, I'm still missing that. I just don't want to go from 5 to 4. Like I said, that's not easy to do, especially with smaller hands. So if you're like me and you kept missing that, I would circle that B, that 4 on B, just to get the attention. Now I'm going to play it through one more time, and I'm just going to play it up to speed just for fun. So here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there we are. Yep. It's a really, really, really fun piece, but it'll take a lot of work to get up to that speed. And as usual, you don't have to go that fast to still have fun with it and to still learn a lot. Let me know if you have any questions. Just, go ahead and ask any questions you got in the comment section below. I hope this video and this lesson was very helpful and useful for you. Keep an eye out. I should also have a separate video, just performance video, if you want to access that at any time without having to scroll through the lesson video to find a performance recording of this. It'll just be up to speed though. It'll be pretty fast. So if you want the slow practice version, you'll have to look towards the end of this video. Again, I appreciate it, guys, and hopefully lesson 7 doesn't take another year to come out, but appreciate your patience. Remember to subscribe if you haven't, and follow me on Patreon, Piano Mountain. If you want to make a donation, I would love that. You don't have to, but I appreciate you guys just subscribing and following. Thanks so much. See you in the next lesson.